Hello. In this video, we're going to go over imagery in InDesign, how to stay organized, and the importance it is to make sure you're really maintaining your documents effectively. So as we mentioned previously, InDesign's function is multi-page design. Because of that, it handles placing images very well. It does this by not necessarily placing the imagery into the document itself, but instead it kind of creates a duplicate of it and references the original file back in its folder. We call this relative linking. If anybody has ever taken like a web design course, it's very similar to how web design images are hosted. Um, but because of that, it's very, very important for you to stay organized, for you to keep your images collected in the same folder, and to make sure you're not changing their names. Um, so for starters, I'm just going to show you how I set up my documents. You'll notice in this folder out here, I have a dedicated folder to the project called Project 2. And in that folder, I have my InDesign file, Project 2 Cooper. I also create a folder called Assets. This is where I'll keep all of my imagery, iconography, photography, illustrations, whatever. And then just for your notes, this little weird ghost file, 0 bytes. InDesign does a really great thing where it will recover documents should the software ever crash. So this sort of like ghost document will always open every single time I open this file, and it will kind of track its changes so that like, yeah, you're not going to ever lose work. It's truly a wonderful feature. Um, but yeah, here are all my files, and this is where I'm going to start placing imagery. Um, so most of us are probably familiar with like dragging an image from like a Finder window, or I've even done like iMessage onto Illustrator. But because we want to kind of stay organized and keep everything coming from the same location, I'm going to show you the proper way of getting an image onto the page. And that is by placing. So we go File up in the top menu, click Place or Command or Control D, and it brings up you navigate to your photos. In this case, I'm going to choose Bub1. We'll click Show Import Options here just so you could kind of see what to expect should you ever want more nuanced control. And we'll click OK. And then, yeah, it loads your cursor with your image. So then you just drag and drop your content. And that's wonderful. As you design more and as you start doing bigger projects with more pages, the scale will have to come up and down. You're going to want to be very conscious of your image resolution and your image color space. Like I said previously, InDesign will respect any color space. So if I made this image in CMYK, it would respect it. Um, it's also not going to scale your images up or down. So if it's the case that you find a very small image and you place it in a document in a very large size, you're going to see a lot of pixelation, a lot of ugly sort of like rasterization of the edge of your imagery. Same kind of works in the opposite way. If you get a huge file and you scale it down, it's going to look a little bit wonky, a little bit unexpected. The rule that I operate by is I don't scale my image up or down more than 25%, and even that's kind of pushing it. But generally, if I need a bigger or smaller image, I will just create a duplicate in Photoshop or Illustrator that is that resolution. The last feature I want to show you in regards to imagery is, you know, let's preview this really quickly. Your screen might not look like this. And it's only because my computer is kind of nice that it can handle like showing a lot of imagery. But what happens if I have 100 pages and each page has two high-res photos on it? InDesign doesn't want to blow up my computer, and I really appreciate that. Um, so if it's the case that I find that like the high res imagery or photography or whatever is slowing my computer down, you can control how it's showing you your imagery. And that's under view performance or display performance under view. So if you go view display performance, mine is set to high. That means it's showing me the highest resolution of the image. If I set it to typical, um, if we zoom in, you'll see it will have lowered the resolution, but still gives me a decent preview of the photo. It's pretty pixelated. But yeah, if I switch it back to high, you'll notice it's very clear. Um, I would always suggest not going lower than typical. If you drop it to fast, it turns everything to gray boxes, and then you kind of lose your mind because you don't know what you're looking at. So that's a nightmare. So let's keep it typical or high quality. And that's it. So yeah, start placing your text, start placing your imagery, and just start playing around from here on out. It's a lot of experimentation. It's a lot of variety. It's a lot of iteration, a lot of play. So yeah, obviously, if you have any questions, get at me. But ultimately, thanks.